What happened at Bondi Beach was not just another violent incident, it was a rupture in public safety, in trust, and in the belief that some places are simply off limits to terror. One of Australia's most iconic public spaces, a beach known around the world for sun, freedom, and multicultural life, became the site of a deliberate, ideologically driven mass killing. And the more we learn about this attack, the more uncomfortable the questions become. On the evening of December 14th, 2025, just before 7 p.m., Archer Park near Bondi Beach was crowded with families, children, tourists, and members of Sydney's Jewish community gathering to celebrate Hanukkah, a festival centered on light, resilience, and survival. Around 1,000 people were present. What should have been a peaceful cultural celebration turned into panic and bloodshed when two gunmen opened fire without warning. Within minutes, the park was transformed into a war zone. Witnesses described automatic-style gunfire, people screaming, parents shielding children, bodies falling on grass meant for picnics. 15 people were killed, more than 40 were injured. Among the dead were a 10-year-old child and elderly community members who had come simply to celebrate a religious holiday. This was not random violence. Authorities were quick to confirm the attack was targeted, intentional, and ideological. The alleged attackers were identified as Sajid Akram, 50, and his son Naveed Akram, 24, a father and son acting together. That detail alone has deeply unsettled the public. According to police, Sajid was shot dead during a confrontation with officers. Naveed survived, though critically injured, and is now under police guard, facing terrorism-related charges that could define Australia's legal approach to extremist violence for years to come. As investigators searched the scene and the suspect's vehicle, they found Islamic State flags and explosive materials. While the explosives did not detonate, their presence confirmed that this was not an impulsive shooting. It was part of a broader plan to cause mass casualties and terror. Soon after, Islamic State-linked propaganda channels praised the attack as a source of pride, stopping short of formally claiming responsibility but clearly endorsing the violence. That distinction matters. Intelligence experts say it reflects a growing trend in modern extremism. Inspire attacks without direct operational control, allowing terror groups to spread fear while avoiding immediate retaliation. It is ideological outsourcing, and it makes prevention far more difficult. But perhaps the most disturbing revelation came days later. Naveed Akram was known to Australian intelligence. ASIO had reportedly monitored him as early as 2019 due to suspected links to extremist networks. And yet, by 2025, he was no longer under active surveillance. He was not on a watch list. He was not restricted from owning firearms. Somehow, despite years of counterterrorism experience, a man previously flagged for radical views slipped through the system and returned with a gun. This has ignited a furious debate across Australia. How does someone with a history of extremist interest legally obtain weapons in a country with some of the world's strictest gun laws? Were background checks insufficient? Were warning signs missed? Or is the system simply overwhelmed by the scale and complexity of modern radicalization? Officials insist that gun laws worked as designed, that the firearms were legally registered, that procedures were followed. But critics argue that legality does not equal safety. They say this attack exposes a dangerous gap between intelligence monitoring and weapons access, a gap that extremists can exploit with devastating consequences. The political response has been swift but contested. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese condemned the attack as an act of terror motivated by anti-Semitism and promised a full review of counter-terrorism measures. State leaders echoed calls for unity, while simultaneously facing pressure to explain how this happened in one of the most policed cities in the country. Meanwhile, Jewish communities across Australia have been placed under heightened security. Synagogues, schools, and cultural centers are now guarded by police. Many community leaders say the fear was already there. This attack simply confirmed it. Anti-Semitic incidents have been rising nationwide, and this massacre marks the most violent escalation yet. Amid the horror, there were moments of extraordinary bravery. Several civilians intervened to help others escape. One man, later identified as Ahmed Al-Ahmed, reportedly tackled one of the attackers, disrupting the assault and potentially saving dozens of lives. He was seriously injured and hospitalized, but has since been hailed as a hero. Donations for his recovery have poured in from around the world. A reminder that even in moments of extreme darkness, human courage still emerges. Survivors' stories continue to surface, each more haunting than the last. Parents who lost sight of children in the chaos. Visitors who came to Australia seeking safety, only to experience terror again. First responders who described treating gunshot wounds while fearing secondary explosions. Many say the sound of gunfire still echoes in their minds. And then there is the digital aftermath. an increasingly dangerous phase of modern tragedy. Within hours, misinformation flooded social media, AI-generated images falsely depicting suspects, altered videos claiming staged scenes, and conspiracy theories accusing the attack of being a false flag spread rapidly. Authorities have warned that such disinformation not only disrespects victims, but actively fuels division and radicalization, the very goals of terrorism itself. What happened at Bondi Beach is forcing Australia to confront uncomfortable truths, that no place is immune, that extremist ideology adapts faster than policy, that intelligence awareness does not always translate into prevention, and that public confidence can shatter in a single evening. This was not just an attack on a community, it was an attack on the idea that public life is safe, that multicultural coexistence is secure, that beaches and parks are neutral ground. Bondi Beach will reopen, the sun will rise, but something fundamental has shifted. The questions now are unavoidable. Was this preventable? Who failed? And how? And what changes will be made before the next warning sign is missed? Australia is mourning, but it is also watching closely, and it is demanding answers.